Zheng exhaled as he heard the familiar sound. He took 2 steps forward but then jumped back instantly. A faint mark appeared on his face. Something shot out from the man's sleeves at his head. Luckily he had a strong sense for danger and backed off immediately. Though that thing still left a mark on his face. He's not dead. No blood. Still standing there. The force from the bullet would have knocked the person's whole body away. How is he still there? Zheng didn't want to get near the headless body. He stared at the body then noticed something moving through peripheral vision. The shattered flesh and bones of the head were wriggling on the ground. The pieces slowly moved themselves to the body then climbed up. Almost a minute later, the man recovered in whole. Brown Hair turned his head and stared with his cold eyes. Bullet. That force was actually strong. I should kill him first. The people that were being eaten by the vampires stood up. Their bodies grew in size but not as big as the first group of vampires. However, they looked more terrifying with torn open skin and exposed organs. These people began moving toward Zero's location. Zheng told Zero to leave through Soul Link. He wouldn't take light of this man now. This bonus mission was worth a B rank reward after all and rewarded the whole team. The level of danger was equivalent to the dragon. He finally saw what attacked him. A blood vessel that came out of the man's body. This kind of weapon gave him creeps. Zheng took a deep breath. His eyes defocused. Information of the situation streamed into his head, including where the man might attack him, the speed of the hair and blood vessel, how to avoid the baby boy when he attacks. He then took out the dragon's hard necklace from the NA ring and held it in his fist. He charged at the monster. Several blood vessels shot toward his forehead and heart. Both sides were moving at extreme speeds. Zheng didn't dodge as the blood vessels reached inches close to him. A translucent barrier blocked them off right before they reached his skin. At the same time, he stabbed the spear of Osiris toward the monster's head. Unlike when he was facing the vampires, he channeled chi and blood energy into the spear, giving it a golden glow. Brown Hair's expression finally showed emotion. He lifted his leg to block the spear. The spear hit his heel and pierced right through the leg. Despite Zheng only had time to channel a small amount of energy, the golden light completely wiped off a part of the man's flesh. Brown Hair seemed like he didn't feel any pain. He continued his action and drove the spear down to the ground with his leg. At the same time, he grabbed Zheng's neck with a hand. A deep chill spread from the hand. Zheng lost sense of his neck in under a second. Zheng immediately punched at the arm. Pa! The punch snapped the arm and he quickly pulled himself away. Before he could follow up, he heard Brown Hair muttered at the broken arm. Body toughness isn't enough. Strength needs to increase by 3 times. His arm had already recovered and the muscles on his body were moving violently. A scale-like layer surfaced from his skin. Everything happened within just 10 seconds. Zheng was totally shocked. A thought crossed his mind. This situation was what unlocking the 4th stage of the genetic constraint would be like, to be able to alter one's DNA at will. A person could use different amounts of power depending on the situation. The normal weaker body was beneficial to conserving energy and lessening the strain on the body. Then the person would evolve to a combat-ready body during combat. This was the stage his clone was in. Zheng took a deep breath. He entered the 2nd stage. Both his arms enlarged. Chi and blood energy were channeled into the spear once again. As Brown Hair charged at him, he stabbed the spear toward the man's head. Brown Hair raised his arm to block. The two came in contact with a clank. But the spear still pierced into the arm. However, it stopped going forward halfway and then stuck in the arm. Zheng was shocked for a moment. Brown Hair kicked toward his chest at the same time. He had no choice but to let go of the spear. He jumped back several meters before the kick hit him. But the wind pressure from the kick still caused some pain on his chest. If Brown Hair was only 7 to 8 times a normal person's strength in the beginning, his strength was now at least 20 times. Brown Hair sneered. He pulled the spear out of his arm with content and said with a cold smile. You are much stronger than a normal human, a strong low-rank organism. I have decided to make you a vampire obedient to me, a slave that fights for me. In return, I will give you eternal youth and immense strength. Zheng also smiled. It's wonderful that I get to fight you before meeting my clone. Yes, you have an ability belonging to the 4th stage of the unlocked mode, but you aren't as strong as someone in the 4th stage. You will be a demonstration subject. Good that I don't have to guess how strong he is blindly. I only need to use explosion for you. Brown Hair was obviously confused at Zheng's words. At the same time, a series of gunshots were going off by the edge of the exhibition center. That was Kampa firing at the vampires. Brown Hair was ready to attack again when Zheng suddenly disappeared from his vision. The ground that Zheng was standing on exploded. The force from his steps crushed the concrete. He charged toward the man at lightning speed then punched the man's head into his body. Zheng seized the baby boy from the man's arms then sent him back a few dozen meters with a kick. The man smashed onto a streetlight. Didn't get it? This is explosion. Brown Hair's face was completely deformed. The kick also punctured a hole in his chest. Either of these wounds was fatal to any normal person. However, he was like a shape-shifting insect without a specified body. The wounds began regenerating. Flesh and bone branched out to fill in the wounds. In just several seconds, he was able to get himself down from the streetlight. Though his back was bent. The smash probably broke his spine. Yet this also healed in no time. The dragon and Zheng's regenerating rates paled in comparison. Brown hair touched his body, then raised his head to give Zheng a cold smile. Very good. Very strong. I had felt that my evolution stopped recently because I was surrounded by a bunch of trash and low-level species. It was useless absorbing their bodies. Without a strong force to give me comparisons and fight with me, this perfect body of mine couldn't improve further. I mistaken you. You are a high-level being like me. I can taste the essence of that high-level species from your blood. Such a delicious taste. Just one bite of it and I can feel my body evolving again. Become part of me. Use your full strength to make this perfect body evolve again. Brown hair charged at Zheng. The concrete ground exploded with every step he took. His strength increased again. Not only strength but also speed. He reached Zheng in just 3 to 4 seconds. Dozens of blood vessels from his body stabbed toward Zheng like a rain of arrows. Zheng frowned. He used over 70% of his strength during explosion, but the monster came back at him without any wound. He wasn't sure if this was an ability of the mask or a native ability of the 4th stage. Growing stronger when faced against tough opponents. He jumped up over 5 meters high using the movement technique and explosion. The blood vessels stabbed under him. Then he dropped down and stepped the vessels to the ground. The force smashed the blood vessels and a half-meter deep hole on the ground. However, the baby boy in his arm cried before he could take the next action. Zheng felt irritated. The monster couldn't rival him in the explosion state, but the monster also didn't care about the life of the boy. Zheng couldn't do the same since the boy's life was linked to the 10,000 points punishment for the team. Furthermore, he would also choose to protect the boy with his life since the boy was O'Connell and Evelyn's child. He cursed and ran toward the exit. Brown hair's strength and speed were still increasing. It seemed like once he fought Zheng, his body would continue evolving until it reached the same strength and speed as Zheng in his explosion state. Zero, can you hear me? Shoot his legs. He needs time to recover. We have to limit his mobility for now. Zheng was aware he couldn't kill the monster at this time since he had to protect the boy. About 2 seconds later, he heard Zero's reply. I can see him but my hands can't keep up with the speed. I need you to slow him down for 1 to 2 seconds. Okay. Kampa, can you see us? Once his legs get shot, tear him to pieces. Wangxia, I need you to lob a bomb over. Set it to 5 seconds. Throw it as soon as Zero shot his legs. I am not fighting alone. His body may be strong but our strength as a team will tear him to pieces. The soul link connected the whole team closely together. They could plan and react to any situation immediately. Zheng held onto the boy with one arm and swung his other arm at Brown hair. 2 hands smashed together. Brown hair's bones immediately broke, but the impact also pushed Zheng back a step. He was still in explosion state. Brown hair's strength and speed continued increasing even during the fight. Tiny scales started appearing on its skin. And 2 bones were protruding on his back. When Zheng broke his arm, Brown hair reached his other arm toward Zheng's head. His fingers burst open and 5 ligaments shot out. Zheng held his place. Now. Zero. Bang. Brown hair instantly fell to the ground. One of his leg was shot into paste. His body couldn't block off the force from the Gauss sniper rifle. The ligaments didn't reach Zheng's head after all. While Brown hair rolled on the ground, Zheng jumped away. A second later, the EMP rifle roared and tore the man and the ground apart. In just a few seconds, his whole body was in pieces. Zheng jumped once more to grab the bomb that was coming in the air. He threw the bomb behind and entered destruction. Saru. Zheng charged to the end of the exhibition center in almost an instant. An explosion went off in the center. The blast wave crushed all the decorations and lights. Zheng held the boy tight in his arms and stood in place with his back toward the blast wave. The dragon's heart actually activated and blocked all the fragments and stones flying at him. After the blast wave subsided, he turned around to see the exhibition center became a total wreckage with a 10-meter hole in the center. Dark smoke and fire were all over the place. Zheng immediately contacted Lan. Scan the whole exhibition area and its surrounding. See if there's anything moving that has no mental energy. Lan paused for a while before she said. There are still a lot of vampires. None of them has any mental energy. I will send the results over to your mind. Zheng closed his eyes to receive the results then sighed. They couldn't lock onto Brown hair with so many vampires here. There was also no way to tell if he was still alive or some part of his body ran away. Let's go. We will go find the movie characters. Ha. You don't know how many times the word gold was mentioned in the Mayan ruins. It definitely surpassed what we saw in Haymantra. I swear there's definitely a mountain of gold hiding within the ruins. Let's go, Zheng. Apply your usual measure to hiring a few thousand people and excavate it. He said to everyone, but his eyes only had the symbols of gold. Oh please. It was all golden mask. Don't omit the second word. O'Connell walked over and slapped Jonathan's head. He sat down on a sofa. Zheng had land scanned the whole exhibition center after the explosion and coincidentally saw the movie characters coming out of a car. They were standing not far away from the center with Imhotep and Aang Sunamuan. Zheng met up with the team, then went over to the movie characters. Evelyn cried at once when she saw the baby boy. She held him in her arms and O'Connell had to comfort her. Everyone followed Zheng back to the hotel. They helped Evelyn confirm the boy was perfectly fine, then fed him some milk before finding the chance to sit down and talk. Due to the growing tension in England, we immigrated to the US. We originally planned to buy a mansion on the East Coast since we have the savings. but when Evelyn contacted her college professor and found out he went to the West Coast with a team of archaeologists, we put the mansion aside and took the train to the Mayan ruins. O'Connell narrated their experience. Though the others were curious as to why Jonathan was with them. Zheng asked. Jonathan, didn't you plan to go to China? Why were you with O'Connell at the Mayan ruins? Jonathan took a sip of the coffee then laughed boldly. Why would you think a brother as responsible as me would leave my dear sister and brother-in-law to take a trip on my own? They can't accomplish anything without me. I have no choice but to take it upon myself to protect them. O'Connell exposed the lie instantly. Are you sure it wasn't because you heard of a newly discovered gold mine in San Francisco? Then you heard that the Mayans had the custom of burying the royals with gold. Jonathan immediately laughed. Of course not. Do you think this gentleman would dig someone's grave just for some gold? I think he will. Zheng said in a low voice. Not think. He definitely will. O'Connell said. The movie character's arrival made Zheng feel better. When he learned that the boy was O'Connell and Evelyn's son, he was prepared for the worst, that the main characters had been killed. Zheng said. Let's go back to the monster. How did he come into existence? How did you get that mask? O'Connell nodded. We arrived at the Mayan ruins. The archaeologists were trying to open a gate. Evelyn and her professor could only identify a part of the characters carved on the gate. There were two possible meanings. 1. The hope of mankind rests behind the gate. 2. The devil that destroys the world hides behind the gate. Of course, this wouldn't stop the archaeologists. They opened the gate and entered the pyramid. To be honest, that place was nothing like a tomb, more like a factory with many bronze tools. The handles of those tools were wood and had decayed long ago. Aside from the tools was a huge hole on the ground filled with human bones. The archaeologists said it was a place for human sacrifices. Evelyn came out from the room and took over. But those bones were all deformed. A small quantity of them didn't even look human anymore. How could those retards think the bones were human sacrifices? I have never seen any civilization use monsters. We kept heading inward and reached the innermost part of the pyramid. There, we found a gold mask embedded on a wall surrounded by words and murals. However, the archaeologists were getting impatient and just took the mask and left. We discovered more from the words and murals. Evelyn sat next to O'Connell and muttered. The murals depicted the era of evolution from apes to humans. When humans were still apes, the world was inhabited with countless monsters. Many had strength and abilities way beyond that of humans. Then a group of saints emerged among the apes. They led the apes to victories over the monsters. The apes survived and eventually evolved to humans. However, the saints began to die of age. Since the monsters were nearly wiped out in the war, no more humans could become saints anymore. Those who were still alive started to think of solutions. Some wanted to create saints by building a dimension then throw humans and monsters into it and kill each other. The other saints felt it was too cruel. They began to develop items that can turn humans into saints. A group that wore robes and a hat developed a golden pill that can turn humans into saint-like beings. These resided on the mountains. Another group that wore capes did surgeries on humans to give them feathered and webbed wings. Those who were transformed followed their saints and left. The last group of saints wore masks. They created this golden mask. Once a human wears this mask, he will become the closest being to a saint. However, what followed in the murals depicted everything the saints did were meaningless. People that took the golden pills became cruel and attacked the saints with robes. They then split into two factions and went to war against each other. These people all died in the end. The humans with wings lost their reproductive ability. Those with feathered wings went to war against the webbed wings and they all died. Humans who wore the golden mask eventually turned into monsters and started hunting other humans as food. They also feared sunlight, which will turn them into bones. As the last remaining saint died, all that was left was the dimension. Zheng and his team were shocked with their eyes wide open. That was almost unimaginable. The murals depicted the origin of God's dimension and everything that happened before it. Xian adjusted his glasses. So that means the monster was a normal person that wore the mask. Are the ruins still preserved? Evelyn nodded. The ruins are still there, but the archaeologists had turned into vampires. The monster was originally a regular old man. However, he isn't a complete monster yet. He's currently a defective product. Zheng's team was shocked. Xian frowned and bit his finger. Why do you say that? The monster is currently powerful, similar to the one you described. If it is still considered incomplete, then its full power is beyond imagination and much more than what our rewards are. Evelyn asked. What rewards? The mural said the design of the golden mask had flaws. It couldn't evolve the wearer to the intended stage. Firstly, the beings lose control over their emotions. They will act according to their present desires. Secondly, they have to absorb human blood to maintain their life force. And the last flaw is fatal. They have no resistance toward sunlight. A minute amount of sunlight will kill them. Zheng suddenly took out the gold fragment from the ring. That wouldn't be due to this little piece, right? How did you even manage to get this piece off him? O'Connell took the gold fragment and smiled bitterly. While the monster was chasing after us, Jonathan sneaked into the town to steal the mask. However, the monster seemed to have an invisible connection to the mask. He went back to attack Jonathan at once. I am not sure what happened. The building caught fire and Jonathan came back with this fragment. Zheng smiled. I basically get it. You can see how powerful the monster is if Jonathan only managed to steal a fragment. I have to keep my things in my hand if I don't want him to take it away. Jonathan smiled modestly. Zheng asked. Is he going to overcome the flaws with this fragment? Evelyn shook her head. No. That is only the first step. The murals indicated he also needs a large diamond to gather sunlight then shoot a beam into the forehead of the mask. He will evolve again to the same stage as the saints. There is only one such diamond in this world. Zheng said. That wouldn't be the one Jonathan got from the pyramid, right? How did he know that you have the diamond? O'Connell nodded. Right. That's the one. Jonathan bragged about his diamond in a game of poker while we were with the archaeologists. Zheng rubbed his brows then turned to Lan. Still no results from the scan. Lan shook her head. No. The zombies scattered throughout the city. There are no trace of the monster. I have to put the hotel under surveillance in case he attacks the hotel. Zheng nodded then looked at Xian. Any discovery on the monster's cells? When Zheng retrieved the spear of Osiris after the explosion, there was a piece of the monster's flesh stuck on the spear. This flesh was wriggling like it wanted to fall off the spear. Xian nodded. He took out a glass bottle from a large leather bag. I had the guards of the hotel bought me a set of laboratory supplies. These tools are rather simple but some data are easy to gather also. To begin, this piece of flesh is a complete organism on its own. A piece of pink meat was moving inside the glass bottle. There were several tiny eyes and tentacles grown on the meat. Its size was bigger than when they initially obtained it. Xian continued. Its size was very small initially. I then cut off a third of it for experimentations. However, once I poured cow blood on the meat, it absorbed the blood and grew to this size. Various organs also began to emerge from the meat, such the organs for vision and smell. This meat can be considered a complete organism at this point. He took out several more glass bottles. A piece of meat was floating inside liquid on each bottle. I submerged the meat with different liquids. In concentrated sulfuric acid, the meat quickly dissolved. However, this bottle consists of diluted sulfuric acid. Take a look here. They followed Xian's finger. Inside the bottle was a small ball filled with holes. The holes were bubbling at a slow pace. The meat evolved to resist the corrosion of the acid in a short period of time. It turned its outer layer into a form of isolation. The cells on the other layer are dead but its inside is still alive. Alkaline solution yielded similar results. But saline solution has a different effect. See the evolution in this bottle. Xian pointed to a glass bottle. A thin slice of meat was floating on top of the saline solution and breathing. It looked like a marine species. After showing all the bottles, Xian said calmly. Understand? This meat is different from ours at the most basic level. We can speculate that the creators of the golden mask intended to give the wearers control over their genes. However, the experiment failed and the genes gained control over the hosts. Every cell became an individual organism. The aggregation of these cells became the monster. The monster doesn't have control over its evolution anymore. These cells will evolve on their own when they sense danger. As long as a single cell is still alive, the monster is still alive. What a rank B difficulty mission. One mistake and we won't even finish it. Luckily there is no time limit and no penalty for not completing it. Otherwise we might just wipe here. Everyone was silent. The movie characters basically didn't understand much of what was said. Though they get that the monster was difficult to kill. If luck wasn't on their side, countless monsters might emerge from his meat. Zheng pondered for a moment. This is indeed difficult to deal with. But I think it might be a chance. Why didn't the meat pieces separate from the monster's body? Why didn't they attack and devour each other? Do you still remember the fight? The meat returned to his body after I smashed him. Which means this piece might lead us to the monster. Xian gave him an approving look. Correct. There's a high chance of finding the monster using this piece of meat. However, I want to do one more experiment first. Imhotep, dehydrate it. I am curious if the cells will evolve to a form of life that doesn't require water. Imhotep and Anksunamun were sitting on the sofa quietly. Imhotep didn't need to consume any food while Anksunamun was enjoying a cup of coffee and cakes. When Xian turned to them, Imhotep refused. I have no obligation to help you. We haven't come to any terms yet. Zheng asked. I have been curious. Why did you come to New York with the others? Are you seeking the mask too? You can't even turn into a monster since you are not a normal human. What would you need it for? Imhotep nodded. Yes. I don't have any use for the mask but Anksunamun could. If we use the diamond on the mask, she won't turn into a monster. Otherwise, she is growing older day by day. I can help you fight the monster but the mask must belong to me. Evelyn coughed to get their attention. What the murals depicted is only a possibility. You should be aware that the monster and the vampires it made will burn to dust upon contact with sunlight. Yet, it says to shine concentrated sunlight on the mask's forehead. Are you sure about taking this risk? Anksunamun looked hesitated. No normal person would want anything to do with the mask after seeing the experiments on the flesh even if the mask brought immense power. Especially a woman as beautiful as her. However, Imhotep didn't seem to get her feelings and acted stubborn. Zheng had to enlighten him. Imhotep, stop acting so selfish. Is it fine turning your lover into a monster just so you can be with her forever? Do you love her or yourself? Imhotep turned to Anksunamun with doubts. She looked back at him with a pair of pitiful eyes. He hesitated before saying with difficulty. At least let me experiment the mask on an animal. If it really turns into a monster, I will give the mask to you. Give me that piece of flesh. He held out his hand to Xian. Xian handed him the bottle with the largest piece. Imhotep opened the cap, then the flesh instantly shot out at his hand and trying to dig its way in. Everyone was shocked. The women screamed and the men all stood up. Imhotep waved his hand and said, "Not a problem. My body is different from yours." His whole arm transformed to a wave of sand and back to an arm. On his palm was a piece of dehydrated flesh. Imhotep smiled at them, then tore the flesh in half. There was no sign of regeneration anymore. Xian took over a piece and pondered for a moment. He opened the saline solution bottle and threw it in. The thin slice that was originally inside the solution surrounded the dehydrated flesh. As it absorbed the solution, the dehydrated flesh grew back up and in the end, merged with the thin slice. Dehydration only takes away the cell's ability to move but not kill them. The only methods we know that can destroy the cellular structure in a short time are strong acid and base, fire, and sunlight. Silver will poison the cells and disable the cell's ability to split, but won't kill them. Xian shook his head and said. Zheng breathed out. That's enough. Not all battles have a perfect solution. Just like you said, 50% chance of success is worth taking the risk. I will assign the roles now. Imhotep and I will be our main attackers. Since the monster already fought me and absorbed some of my blood, his strength and speed are exceptionally fast. Firearms aren't fatal to him, but if he gets inside your body, you will turn into a vampire. So the two of us are the only ones that can get near him. Zero will support us from afar. Your first targets will be his legs. It takes him time to regenerate. So if he tries to run, blast off his legs. I will use explosion or even destruction to beat him down. Imhotep then take the chance to dehydrate him, every single cell. Afterward, we will just have to wait for sunrise. Which means our attack starts at before dawn. Once their strategy was decided, they were left with determining the time and how to find the monster. Even though the flesh were alive on their own, but could they still return to the main body when they were separated so far away? No one knew, but they decided to test this possibility at 4 a.m. Kampa can come with us to help clear the vampires on the side and offer fire support when needed. Everyone else stay in the hotel. Wang Xia, Xian, and O'Connell protect them. Lan keeps our communication in place. Any questions? Zheng finished talking then asked. The others shook their heads and Jonathan said with excitement. Don't worry. We will stay in the hotel and won't interfere with your fight in any way. I promise. Zheng smiled bitterly. Why do your words feel like a thorn to my ears? Like some accident is prone to happen to make you mess the fight up. Xian frowned. There might be an accident. I seem to have missed something in my calculations, something critical. Let me go over my thoughts again. A person obtained the golden mask, turned into a monster, then killed the group of archaeologists and everyone in the town. You escaped by luck. Jonathan stole a fragment of the mask. The monster wanted to retrieve this fragment and obtain the diamond, so he chased after you and kidnapped Alex on the way. Then he followed you to New York. O'Connell and Evelyn looked at each other then nodded. Xian rubbed his temples. Which means he had 2 chances of killing you, but he didn't. While you managed to steal a fragment from him. He also has a sense of connection to the fragment, but you mailed it to Cairo instead of carrying along. That was why he kidnapped Alex. So I was wrong since the beginning. This monster has a high level of intelligence. He let Jonathan steal the fragment so he could follow you to the diamond. Yet, after you mailed away the fragment, he had to kidnap Alex instead. Xian bit his finger. I know the reason. The mission includes protecting Alex's life and preventing him from turning into a vampire. The monster had already injected his cell into Alex's body. He can easily find our location and ambush us. Once the cell grows, Alex will turn into a vampire. F***ck. He might be in the hotel already. The sound of glass shattered came from the room Alex was sleeping in right as he finished talking. Being the parents, O'Connell and Evelyn were the quickest to respond. The two of them rushed toward the bedroom as soon as the sound came about. O'Connell pulled out the gun by his waist, then shoulder charged the door open. Zheng was slightly slower to react, but he moved much faster. He leaped off the sofa and headed in one step ahead of O'Connell. A narrow tentacle-like flesh stood by the bedside. It came all the way from the bathroom and held up the baby boy. 2 more tentacles suddenly dropped down from the ceilings. They turned sharp and stabbed toward Zheng and O'Connell. Zheng bit his teeth then jumped up. He opened his arms to reach for the thorn flesh. The thorn stabbed into his palms, then he activated red flame which enveloped them. They struggled for merely a second before being burned to ashes. However, he was still too late. The tentacle wrapped around the boy and moved to the window then dropped down. Zheng, O'Connell, and Evelyn looked out the window, but the boy was nowhere to be seen. Zheng turned around and shouted. Lan. Did you lock onto Alex's mental waves? Send his location to my mind. He kicked at the window that had a hole and shattered it, then jumped out. Lan quickly closed her eyes and locked onto the boy's location, then connected to Zheng's mind. The image entered his mind as he jumped off. He took out the sky step and sped toward the location. Looking down from the sky, there were dozens of people running away. In the middle of the crowd was a giant vampire with 7 or 8 human legs and a body multiple persons big. It seemed just like a fusion of multiple people. The boy rested on one of his many arms. As Zheng came into its view, It held the boy inside his arms and the vampire surrounded it. This is Xian. Don't attack the giant. Let it take the boy away. Lan had locked onto him. The monster isn't aware of this ability. The time is still too early. We will wait until before dawn. Xian's voice came into his head. Zhen hesitated for a bit and asked. What if the monster turned Alex into a vampire? I can't take such a big risk. 10,000 points penalty for everyone. And he's the son of O'Connell and Evelyn. I am going to follow Alex until I find that monster. Then I will attack. Xian's voice paused for a second. Both chances account for 50% possibility each. So either way doesn't matter. However, Imhotep won't be able to help you. The flesh invaded the hotel, so he must escort us to the nearby park first. Zero and Kampa are heading over to you. Zheng's mind wavered as he stared back at the hotel far away. The flesh was difficult to defend against. Any contact might let it enter the body. He worried if his comrades could defend the attacks, but it was already too late to go back now. He might as well just go kill the monster. Zheng followed almost directly above the boy so that if anything happens, he could attack the vampires and giant immediately. He pondered over the fight coming up, but he had no effective methods to fight the monster. Even if he tore the body into pieces or blew it up, the monster was still alive. Sunlight was its weakness, but there was no way he could delay until sunrise. Yet that was still the only method he could come up with. The characteristic of the chaotic unity chi was being neutral and enduring. Once he activated the chi over throughout his body, he could increase his resistance by several folds. With the addition of the dragon's heart, he could drag out the fight. However, he was worried about hurting the boy since he had to carry him during the whole fight. The vampires left the main road and headed toward a construction site. There was a recently built skyscraper that hadn't been occupied yet. Zheng saw the brown-haired man looking down from the roof. He retrieved the sky stick into the ring, then jumped down directly onto the giant's arm. Followed by the sound of broken bones. The giant's body was nowhere near that of the monster's, nor had the regenerative ability. Zheng broke its arm, then regained Alex at once. He stepped on the monster again and forced it to the ground. The vampires around all leaped at him. He jumped up while his other hand took out the spear of Osiris from the ring. Once chi and blood energy entered the spear, he threw it straight down. The vampires pierced by the spear turned to dust, and it emitted a golden shockwave that burned the vampires. It seemed like the spear was especially effective against these vampires. Zheng landed back on the ground and pulled out the spear from the ground. His eyes moved from the boy to the man on the roof. He took out the sky stick again and flew up. Brown hair didn't seem worried at all. He waited for Zheng to come near quietly with a glass of red liquid on his hand. Zheng's heart rate suddenly increased as soon as he saw the rooftop. It was a scene of nightmare. The whole roof was painted with blood. Over 100 corpses lay on the floor behind the brown-haired man, a big pile of corpses to the side, and over a dozen people still alive nailed to the wall and had their tongues cut off. 2 vampires flipped a man around and blood dripped onto the floor. Zheng looked closely at brown hair. His legs had turned into small tentacles submerged in the blood. He seemed enjoying absorbing the blood into his body while he drank the glass he was holding. He allowed Zheng to come closer and stared at him. Zheng gritted his teeth. Not only did your body turn to a monster, your mind and heart are also monster. Death will be the best liberation for you. He began charging the spear of Osiris. Brown hair also sensed the danger and retrieved the tentacles back into a pair of legs. The spear glowed in a golden light that was increasing in intensity. As the man's legs returned, Zheng gave a shout and threw the spear. Zheng's chi and blood energy were about double what he had when he first obtained the spear of Osiris. His chi also stepped up in quality. This throw only used up half his energies, but it was definitely more powerful than his full power throw when he first obtained the spear. The glow from the spear seemed like a tiny sun. The vampires in the distance ignited themselves upon contact with the light. Brown hair's body didn't burn, but neither did it had any defense against the spear. The spear passed right through him and disintegrated his chest. The force pulled the rest of his body to the ground as the spear and piercing through the floors. Zheng panted heavily since this attack took over half his energy. Not even his body could withstand the strain without issues. But it was all worth killing the monster. Yet, before he got the chance to contact Xian and the others, a ball of flesh in the blood pool began moving. Small pieces from the burned vampires and the corpses nearby crawled their way to the ball and fused together. By the time Zheng came back to his senses, the ball slowly transformed to a human figure. Several seconds later, the brown-haired man stood on the pool of blood. He looked at the hole on the floor and said, "Impressive power. If it was the me that just evolved back in the town, I would have been killed. Haha. I am constantly evolving to a higher level organism. This hole is witness to my evolution. You can't kill me. No one in the world can kill me." Zheng asked. "Why? Did you dodge the spear? It can't be. Not even me in the explosion state can dodge the spear. That's impossible." Brown hair laughed. He walked over to a living human nailed to the wall and stabbed his hand into the man's stomach. The man's body slowly withered and grew back up. In just a few seconds, he turned into a vampire. The vampire tore himself off the wall and took on the task of draining blood off the living. Brown hair licked the blood off his fingers. "My body took critical damage back in the exhibition center. Even though I can regenerate my body from the other flesh pieces, I still needed a large quantity of energy. These people all died because of you. Haha. You are to blame for their deaths." Zheng gave him a cold smile. Shut up with your nonsense. Don't smear your shit on us. I can claim everything is your fault. If you died back there, no one would have died. You disgusting monster. The man looked at his arm. Disgusting monster? Really? You low-level species won't understand the feeling of the higher organisms. The sensation of absorbing a human's blood and feeling them become a part of you was ecstatic, more so than sex. Do you want to know why I didn't get killed? Because I have become invincible. He laughed in madness. Several balls of flesh rose from the blood and transformed into his figure. Zheng was shocked, but he acted with a sneer. Don't try to deceive me with your vampires. Go f***ck yourself. Once I retrieve the spear, you will be gone in an instant. Brown Hair shook his head. Stupid low-level species. You are ignorant if you think of them as fakes. Every vampire I created has my cells within. As long as one vampire survives, I will live forever. Those bitten by the vampires also have my cells. Get why you can't kill me? I have tens of thousands of bodies in the city and the number is still growing by the second. What you don't know is any one of me that evolve in the fight against you will cause all the others to evolve. Don't think that you can just kill the strongest me. My evolution can't be stopped. Zheng didn't know the truth to his words, but if they were real, his team would be in great danger. This monster was almost unkillable. Their only chance was killing him before he could first evolve. No wonder the lack of a time limit for the mission. Brown Hair saw Zheng's expression and sneered. Don't try to run. The boy in your arms has my cells inside. Those cells are hibernating. Once 10 days are up, they will activate and grow. The boy will become one of my vampires. My conditions are simple. Give me the diamond and fragment and I will spare you. There is no need to kill you since the city has enough people to feed my evolution. I don't have a conflict of interest with you. Why don't we come to deal? What Zheng needed the most was to delay for Imhotep or sunrise. So he replied. Stop lying. You had said that your evolution had come to a stop, so you came to attack me and take my blood. Do you think I will believe your words? Furthermore, you are already cruel enough. Once you evolved, you will just annihilate the human race. Brown Hair sighed. His expression turned hideous. What a thick head. I plan to make you my personal vampire guard and let your friends live for a little longer. But it seems there's no way I can let you go. Be proud of becoming the guard to the future ruler of this world. A pair of black webbed wings spread out from his back and the 4 copies of him. They floated up to the air to Zheng's surprise. Brown Hair laughed maniacally. This is thanks to your life essence. It evolved my body and gave me the ability to fly. Even though I will eventually gain this ability, but it's still nice to have it early. Don't be concerned about your friends. My vampires are surrounding them. Once enough of the vampires died, a copy of me will arise. That will be the time of their death. Despair was slowly clouding Zheng's heart. He watched the 5 copies of Brown Hair flew toward him and turned the sky stick around. He started calling for Lan in his mind as he flew toward them. He sent this message over and told them to run and avoid killing vampires. As the multiple brown hairs were chasing after Zheng, a sandstorm whirled over to Zheng. He heard Imhotep's voice. You look terrible. You are the person that defeated me. How can 5 little bats scared you running like this? The sandstorm enveloped the 5 brown hair men. Zheng also stopped in surprise. However, when he saw the sandstorm surrounding the men, he noticed several more of them was flying over from afar. Imhotep was like a natural counter to monsters created from the mask. Their strength was useless against him. The blood vessel's piercings had no effect since Imhotep had neither flesh nor blood. Anything that entered his body would be dehydrated. He ignored the attacks and caught 2 of brown hairs in the sandstorm, then quickly drained all the water from their bodies. A minute later, 2 mummies fell to the ground. Zheng took out a submachine gun from the ring. He fired at the brown hairs flying at him. Despite not fast enough to catch up to the sky stick, their movements were very flexible in dodging the bullets. Even when the magical bullets hit them, they were as ineffective as normal bullets. F***ck. Imhotep, can't you catch a few more at once? Zheng shouted. Imhotep hadn't caught anyone after the first round. Imhotep shouted back. Do you think I don't want to? Their strength is too powerful. They crushed my body the moment I come into a form. This strength doesn't belong to humans. They are obviously not humans. What kind of people have this strength and rate of recovery? They are monsters. No wonder the mission is the same rank as the dragon. This is even harder than the dragon. Zheng compared the monster and dragon. In some sense, the monster was much scarier than the dragon. Give him some time to live through the early stages. Once he evolved to an extent and spread his cells out, this monster became unkillable. Just imagine of a city with tens of thousands of people infected by him. At that point, even if parts of him got burned by sunlight, he would still be alive. It wasn't possible for sunlight to hit every single cell at once. He would just keep getting stronger and spreading his cells. If this was the case, why was this monster only a rank B mission? Was the lack of a time limit due to it being too powerful? Were they destined to fail the mission? Qian, can you hear me? Zheng suddenly had an idea, but if this idea failed, they would all die here. He needed someone he trusts to give him advice. A few seconds later, he heard the calm voice. I heard you. Just speak. Zheng took a deep breath. Back in the Scorpion King quest, we burned down a forest to enter the pyramid. You told me there are multiple ways to complete a mission. I want to know if I continued killing the pygmies, would I be destined to get killed by their evolved weapons? Xian paused for a few seconds. I don't know why you are asking this. Did you find his weakness but you are hesitating? The answer is no, even if we killed a way through the forest instead of burning it. This is God's way to force you to evolve. As the pygmies get stronger, you have to keep evolving to stay alive until you can win them. This was the intention of God. There can't be one single solution to a mission. We just haven't found a shortcut yet. Similarly, the amount of rewards is equivalent to the degree of danger. Any other questions? Zhen breathed out and said. Some small questions, but I have decided. Everyone come take this bet with me, a bet with our lives. Xian replied. What is the chance of success? I won't agree on bets with less than 50% success rate. 50-50. Either live or die. Xian paused for a while. Then you can put our lives on the table. 50% chance is enough for us to take the risk. Zhen continued. I already sent you the info on the monster before. Why was it considered a flawed product in the Mayan civilization when it has the perfect ability to evolve, perfect survival mechanisms, a perfect body, and perfect reproductive ability? Why didn't they conquer this world after the saints died? These are my questions. What is the flaw of such a perfect being? Xian paused even longer this time. It is inconceivable that such a monster dies to mere sunlight. Where is his flaw? The only one I can think of is their perfection is beyond any living things. Just like myself. Being too perfect is a flaw. Zhen dodged 2 attacks. There were 8 of the monsters chasing after him now, and this number would only increase over time. He accelerated the sky stick and took advantage of his speed to run. Yes. They are perfect and invincible. So I hypothesize that their perfect evolution ability is the flaw. Xian, we don't have time to wait for dawn. This is only 1 AM. I can predict there will be over 100 of these monsters in the next few hours. That isn't something I can kill off even with the help of Imhotep. As long as one single cell escapes, he would live. This was probably the reason for the lack of a time limit. But there must be a method to kill him aside from sunlight. It's impossible to burn every single cell under sunlight, especially the cell inside Alex's body. So. Zhen turned around to face the 8 monsters and the sandstorm. He muttered to Xian. Someone once said that the strongest part of a person is usually his most fragile. Xian, I plan to challenge this perfect evolution. Let's put all your lives on me. Zhen shouted. Imhotep, come over to me. I found a way to deal with the monster. He flew toward the sandstorm. 10 seconds later, the sandstorm flew to Zheng's side. Imhotep said from within. How? Hurry up and say it. Aang Sunamun and the others are in danger. Zheng smiled at him and handed the boy over. Take him back to the others. Remember not to kill any vampires. Just dehydrate their bodies. And protect everyone. Leave the rest to me. Imhotep hesitated for a bit before taking the boy in his sandstorm and left. As the sandstorm went far away, Zheng heard the word careful, which gave him a smile. Zheng landed the sky stick to the ground and smiled at the group of brown hairs approaching. He said in a low voice. Come. I will let you evolve.